Should Christians co-lead with non-Christians in government? Hello, everybody. I'm Jim McCotter. According to the Bible, God ordained three and only three institutions: family, state, and church. The first two were started in the Old Testament and reaffirmed by God in the New Testament, and all three are His institutions for today. Number one, do you think God ordained any one of His institutions for Him to not be honored and glorified through it? Number two, do you think any person or group in the world has any right to claim any one of God's institutions for themselves or for their purpose or for their honor and glory? Number three, do you think Satan has any right to claim any one of God's institutions for himself or for his purpose or for his honor and glory? Number four, do you think God's plan is for non-Christians to lead or co-lead with Christians in any one of His institutions? I think any Bible understanding and true Bible believing Christian would have to answer every question as no. To understand this better, we need to realize that no person is neutral. Jesus and all the New Testament clearly confirm this. For example, every person is either saved or lost. Every person is either in the kingdom of light or in the kingdom of darkness. Every person is either under and being ruled by God or the devil. This should be kept in mind when looking at all three of God's institutions. Family. First, consider the family marriage institution. Should a Christian ever marry a non-Christian, having a spiritually mixed marriage and mixed parenting? Never, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 39. What about if two non-Christians get married and later one gets saved and the other does not? According to God in 1 Corinthians 7:12 through 15, the one that is saved is to take control of the spiritual environment of the children and household, or the children will become, quote, unholy, end quote. This is to be done for the sake of the children, even if the non-Christian spouse would separate, quote, let them leave, end quote. There is to be no spiritually mixed spouse co-leading for God's family institution. Church. Should Christian pastors be content to co-pastor with non-Christians? The answer to this is obvious to any true Christian pastor: no. When I was in the Soviet Union in the 80s, I went to a Baptist church. It was the only openly sanctioned church in Moscow. On the board of pastors, there were some genuine Christian pastors, and there were also some state-sponsored pastors, quote unquote, on their board. After the fall of the Soviet Union, how long do you think it took for the genuine Christians to get rid of the non-Christian pastors, so-called? We know that no church can be run today with Christians co-pastoring with non-Christians. Fortunately, we don't start churches that way, and hopefully if any church evolved to that, certainly the genuine Christians would work feverishly to rid the church from any non-Christian leadership. There obviously should be no non-Christian so-called pastors ever co-leading with genuine Christian pastors. State. Now, why in God's name does any Christian that knows and loves God, the Bible, and Jesus want to obliterate God's one and only state government institution? Who thinks God should receive any less honor in His largest institution here on earth, the state, than His other two institutions? Who would think God would want to lead in marriage and in church, but not in state government? Who came up with such unbiblical, stupid theology? It even seems blasphemous. Do they not know that there are literally more verses in the Old and New Testament to confirm having righteous civil leadership than righteous marriage and righteous church leadership? In this short article, I do not begin to have room to go over all the Old and New Testament on this subject, as I wrote a book on it called Christian Manifesto, which you can get in jimsbookstore.com. If someone rejects this truth but is unwilling to search the scripture revealed in Christian Manifesto, they are even less noble than the Bereans. Today, I'm personally so excited about Trump and all his cabinet nominations. But gang, in 2 years, Trump may lose control of the Congress, and we have no guarantee of what will happen after Trump. I'm thinking, what must happen now while Trump is in power so we don't have continued political seesaw for future generations, as we've had the last 60 years? And over the last 60 years, it's slowly been 1 step forward and 2 steps backward. This could be our last real opportunity to transform our government in the direction of what is rightfully God's institution. Should Christians co-lead with non-Christians in government? 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 15, and I quote, "Don't team up with those who are unbelievers. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? What harmony can there be between Christ and the devil? How can a believer be a partner with an unbeliever?" End quote. Though I'm sure some will try to explain this away from applying it to God's civil institution, but that same person will quickly apply it to marriage, church, business, or other areas. If enough Christians would apply this to civil leaders as they do to all other of God's institutions, in short order we'd have no more political seesaws but a God-fearing Congress. We are so accustomed to generations of secular civil leadership that we can't imagine this. But Jesus should have, quote, "all authority in heaven and on earth," end quote, or we should stop calling him, quote, "King of Kings and Lord of Lords," end quote. Matthew 28:18, 1 Timothy 6:15, and Revelation 19:16. Our early American Christians demanded their state constitutions have all their civil leaders be God-fearing Christians. They looked to Jesus as their king and applied the Bible and God's law constitution for their civil government. Quote, "Don't team up with those who are unbelievers. How can light live with darkness? What harmony can there be between Christ and the devil?" End quote. Christians co-governing with non-Christians will inevitably end in ruin, which the left and the devil then win. And finally, Matthew 12:25, quote, Jesus said, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined."